Hello, everyone. It's Maria Turner here with the Fond du Lac Area Women's Fund with another edition of Project Table Talk. Today, I'm joined by co-facilitator Erin Flood, who is a member of our board of directors, as well as two guests. We have Dan Hebel with the Boys and Girls Club of Fond du Lac. He is the CEO. And along with Dan, Allie Sanders, who also works at the club as their new mental health coordinator. Today we'll be talking with Dan and Allie about a relatively new program at the club that was recently implemented in response to wanting to address the various mental health issues they were seeing amongst club members. So Dan, let's just dive right in and tell us a little bit about what prompted you to enhance the services at the club in the area of mental health, leading to this new position on your team, and what types of circumstances you were seeing that prompted this decision to add this position.
Sure, Maria. Thanks for the opportunity for us to chat with you guys today. Um, this is very important to our club, and it's really been an initiative and something that we wanted to do for a long time. Uh, COVID prompted some opportunities with funding. COVID prompted some additional learning that our club has done in terms of our best way to interact with kids, and it was kind of a perfect storm of the right time, the right opportunity, and frankly, the right person. And you're going to get the opportunity to meet Allie a little bit later. But it's always easy to make these decisions when you have people in place that can execute what you want to do. So, but what I want to so the reason the why in our COVID time, we served far less kids because we just didn't have access to them. We kids were in school a couple of days a week. Some were 100% virtual, and so we experienced what the club environment was in smaller groups. And what we learned is it gave us the opportunity to listen to our kids a little bit more and learn more about their needs. And what we learned was kids were struggling. They've always struggled, but they're struggling now more than ever. And we've always recognized a mental health need in this community. Most importantly, when a child experiences, or even an adult experiences a mental health trauma or a health issue, and they call for help, there's a 6 to 8 week gap before they can meet with a professional. So we wanted to do what we could as a club to make sure that if kids were experiencing a mental health event, we needed to be able to be there to triage it immediately. Someone they could talk to, someone they could trust. So we needed to put a formal infrastructure in place beyond just what our staff normally did, because we've always paid attention to the mental health of our kids, but we needed to be more deliberate about it. So it's always been a need. It's always been something we wanted to address in a more formal way, and we finally had the right time and opportunity to do that.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. You brought up a couple of points that I'd like to just have you dive into a little bit more. One is obviously research shows that kids, although there can be a hereditary component, kids who experience trauma tend to obviously need more support in their mental health than kids who don't experience trauma. So over the last few years, although COVID funds gave us an opportunity to really serve the needs of the kids that we have, can you talk a little bit about how you've seen those trends grow maybe over the last several years that made you say, like, absolutely, this is the time and this is what we need to do?
Yeah, and it's really multifaceted because there's layers within this, because it's not only just how the kids' needs have changed, but also how we as a club and our organization has evolved in meeting the opportunities to meet those needs. So I'll dive in a little bit. Obviously, COVID has exacerbated mental health needs for all kids. So if we can kind of like just set that aside for a minute, like we've recognized mental health needs in kids for years, many years. It really it's different for each kid. Sometimes it's familial, sometimes it's education, sometimes it's peer related. You know, all kids deal with mental health, and we can go back years, decades, where there's kids sitting in and coming and meeting with staff, and we're recognizing self-harm tendencies. We're recognizing kids wearing long sleeve baggy sweatshirts in summer because they're hiding either self-harm on their arms or they have a bad body image. We have kids who have come to talk to us about suicidal thoughts and tendencies and all those things. And those are shocking moments. Those are moments that you come to expect as a club staff if you've been around long enough, but it doesn't necessarily qualify you to have that conversation. So it's as those things started to build up for us, we noticed one thing, and one thing that's very important, which is kids trust us. Like kids would never sit down in a room and tell that to their teacher or their principal or their parent. So the fact that they found an environment where they felt comfortable, they felt supported, they felt appreciated and loved enough that they could say those things. And we said, okay, if we're going to create this incredibly trusting and like supportive environment, we better be able to react. So I think that's kind of where we uh, kind of made the decision. And Aaron, you were in the room. We're blessed to have you on our board, and we're blessed to have you on our program committee. We just said, look, it's time for us to focus on the mental health of our kids in a far more deliberate way. And we need educated people for that. We need people with backgrounds in social work. We need people with backgrounds in psychology.
Yep.
And we'll like I said, you're going to meet Allie a little bit later. But it's a big step for us to recognize and for the community to recognize we are far from childcare. I'm going to be on a call later this afternoon about the supportive childcare needs in the community. And I cringe just a little bit because we do so much more than childcare. We do more than keep kids fed and safe for a period of time. So this is another step in that direction and make sure the community knows we're here to support. Got a great relationship with SSM Health, and we're going to be working with them to make sure we integrate what that 6 to 8 weeks look like before we have to connect a family or a child with additional services. So we're excited for that.
Dan, it's interesting when you talk a little bit about the perception and really, I think, the change probably within your club from this idea that at one point, people did rely on you probably solely for before and after school care, right? And so that whole concept of childcare, but because of the enhanced programming that you offer, because of the relationships that your staff is able to build with the kids, it does go far beyond that. And, one of the things that I've recognized over the time that I've worked in various nonprofits is this concept of if a child is having problems within their family, not getting the type of support that they need from family members, whether that be a parent or a grandparent or whoever their guardian is, if they can have just one other supportive adult in their life that they can trust and rely on, it's huge. It is so huge in their ability to uh, go outside those risk factors that might otherwise put them on a path to not so good outcomes for them. So the value that you're offering, I'm glad that you brought that up in terms of it going beyond childcare because I recognize that. I think anyone who's had the opportunity to be around at-risk kids in any environment, whether it be a Boys and Girls Club or another nonprofit, we can see that difference that volunteers make in their lives, that staff makes in their lives. So very cool that the recognition of that amongst your staff. And I love hearing how the kids have come to trust and rely and confide in your staff members as well. With that, Allie, let's talk a little bit about some of the things that kids will confide in you about, some of the situations. I know that we want to use the term common situations, but there's nothing common about mental health. It's very unique and individual to every child and every family. So, can you just give our listeners a little bit of an idea of what you might come upon in the course of what you're working with at the club?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, every kid is different, every case is different, and every day is different. So a big one these days is that I see everywhere at every school, at every site that we have, is just transitioning back to our new normal and how they cope with that, how they deal with stress, how they deal with their triggers, how they deal with their emotions. One big thing that we have started since my position has come to light, is making sure that we check in every day with our kids to see where they are at an emotional level. Getting them talking about it. Because if they can't understand what they're feeling and why they're feeling that way, they're not going to be able to deal with it in a healthy way. So that's one of the biggest things that we have been focusing on this school year, is that if you are feeling upset, we need to figure out why, and then we need to figure out what we can do after, which is a big transition piece in their life. So they're coming here to club after school, after a long day at school. Some stay until 6 or 7 o'clock every day, and then they have to transition from club to home. So they have a long day every day, and there are triggers in those days that they don't know how to deal with, how to support themselves. So that's where our supportive staff and supportive relationships really come into hand. Just having them feel comfortable talking about things that they wouldn't share with their friends. A lot of our kiddos right now, I have in our daily check-ins, I ask, like, do you need anything? Do you need clothes? Do you need food? Do you need school supplies? Anything like that, so they can feel comfortable, sharing those things with us, then know that we will be there to get them those things and to support them. One big thing I mentioned earlier was triggers and trauma triggers. I know we talked a little bit about kids' experiences, and that when they come here and they get triggered, we as a staff and we as a club need to know what those triggers are and how we can help them calm down or help them get through those triggers. At all of our sites, I have implemented like a cool down corner or cool down kit so they can go to this safe space and re-regulate themselves, get back to where they need to be, where they feel comfortable and where they feel safe. So biggest thing that we're doing is helping them identify what they're feeling and then what they can do after and with those feelings and how to deal with them. So it's one of the biggest things we're doing right now.
Allie, you're describing all of this and acting like this is kind of no big deal. Like, oh, we're just like getting them to identify their feelings, be able to cope with what they're feeling appropriately. You're teaching major life skills that are, as an educator, somebody who used to be in a classroom or was a principal, one of the biggest things that teachers need to deal with outside of teaching the curriculum are those regulatory behaviors. Like, how do you identify what you're feeling and handle those feelings appropriately while you're around other people who are also handling their feelings? So just the complexity of what you're doing, don't belittle that, because it's huge and it's so impactful, not only for the environment that you're creating at club, but for the long-term well-being of those kids. And one other thing that I love to hear you talk about is asking them if their basic needs are being met. There's so much shame that comes with having to admit or ask for help in what seems like a basic need for kids, especially if they're in an environment where they think, well, everybody else is getting their needs met. I don't want to stand out and say that mine aren't being met. So those questions, and creating that open dialogue, a place for them to feel safe enough to say, like, I actually do need help with that, is incredible that they have that opportunity with you. Again, as an educator, I always would tell parents, intervention early and often for whatever we're dealing with is the way to overcome whatever obstacle it is on the horizon. So can you talk to us a little bit about what you hope this intervention will do long-term for the kids' overall mental health and well-being?
Yeah. So I guess you kind of touched on it a little bit, but cutting the stigma away from mental health and youth mental health, giving them, our youth in our community, the voice that they need to be able to share openly about what they need and what they feel and how they feel. So educating them on how to do that, keeping mental health at the forefront of their life. A lot of adults these days even forget how important it is to focus on your mental health, focus on self-care, take care of yourself before taking care of anybody else. So teaching them that mental health is a key component of their ability to function as a human.
Mhm.
I think if we start early enough and educate and run our social emotional learning programs every day, and talk about our social emotional needs, that it will change people's mindsets and change how we look at things and how we handle things. So I've noticed it, like, even kids take time to slow down and breathe and process instead of reacting to anything. So
Adults
something
need
that
more of that, Alley, too, huh?
right, I get it. But even, yesterday I was meeting with a youth at our site, and she had such a negative connotation with, like, mental health. I'm gonna have to go see a therapist, like, saying it in such a negative way. And just to make her stop and realize that that's not a bad thing. That a lot of people that you may not even know see counselors and therapists, and that they're here to help. We need to take care of our brains just like we do our bodies. So making them stop and realize how important that is our goal.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's really important just to have these sorts of conversations, right? The idea of mental health and people having issues to contend with has been around forever, right? But for whatever reason, people did not feel comfortable discussing that. There was a lot of shame associated with it. So the ability to bring that out in the light and get kids talking about that at an early age so that that feels normal to them and that they don't feel that they need to hide the feelings surrounding that, I think is super important. I also think that it's important to educate the community surrounding the word trauma. Because that's kind of this big word that not everyone fully understands. And it can be as simple as living in poverty. That is one of the adverse childhood experiences: poverty, divorce. So
Mhm.
it's not always being abused or living in neglect. Sometimes it's just not having your basic needs met and feeling insecure, developing an insecure attachment because of that. And so I think, what you're doing not only to educate the kids, I'm sure that there's some overflow into educating families about mental health. Dan, I'm guessing that the addition of Allie to your staff has opened up all kinds of opportunities to educate other staff members and your board members. So, talk to us a little bit about that ripple effect of educating more than just the kids themselves.
Yeah, I mean, when you take a mental health focus, it's not just a program you run. It's about culture. So we've been very open with conversations with staff as well, that if you need someone to talk to Allie, because she's willing and able to sit and listen effectively, and then respond appropriately, and potentially, let people know that there are other options and services they can seek out for help. I mean, as someone like myself who's been open about their mental health journey, we all have needs. We all have, deficiencies that we need help and support with. And I think if people who have the courage to do that are the people who really should be holding the flag and carrying the banner on something like this. And for us as an organization, we hope that this is just the start. This is not a reaction to a point in time and something that will fade away at some point. This will be something that is ingrained in our culture, and then hopefully something that we build on. Ultimately, I see 3 to 5 years down the road that Allie's position is a department. It's a group of people that's doing this work to meet the needs of not only the kids we serve, but the staff that we hire, as well as the parents whose kids we serve. Because if we're going to be deliberate about this work, we have to mean it. And it can't just be, something we did at a point in time. And I don't see this as something that is done for a period of time and goes away. I don't see how we could jump into this world and just let it exist either as it is or go away. So I fully see this as an opportunity for us as a club to create what I call mental health as being a core program, in the same way that academic success is a core program for us, healthy living, as well as character and leadership development. There's no reason why mental health can't be that next big bucket of things that we focus on. And this really starts and ends with what happens at the national level with Boys and Girls Clubs of America. What we're focusing on is very Fond du Lac centric. But Allie and I have been on calls with people who are ready to make this move to the forefront of the national lens. We're going to have to get past COVID first, I think, because in a lot of ways, our national organization is in survival mode, supporting clubs who, still since last March are still not open around the country, either for a lack of resources or for fear of the virus. So I think I saw a stat yesterday, 81% of clubs are back to serving kids in person. So 1 out of 5 is still not serving kids in person. And that's really what they're focused on. So focusing on mental health, I think, is going to have to take a back seat, but we're past that locally. We've been serving kids since last June, again, in person. And we're going to focus on these things. And I want to touch on something Allie mentioned really quickly, about pulse checks and talking to our kids. We learned that in COVID. Hey, if we ask some questions, we're going to get some answers.
Yeah.
And so let's ask a question every day and see what our kids, and what we've heard has been phenomenal. We've been able to meet needs of kids. We've been able to understand more about why they behave the way they do. And this, I don't want to make a generalization of the families that we serve, but families traditionally that we serve, parents are less available to ask those questions, whether that's through multiple job employment. Maybe they're working 50, 60 hours a week, generally low paying jobs. They're not available for their kids after school. They're exhausted at night. Kids are exhausted at night. There's not the same connection point that maybe some of us enjoy with our families over dinner or something like that. So we need to make those connection points. And these kids are responding significant to the just the fact that someone's asking them a question and is invested in how they feel and how they're doing. That's powerful stuff. And so if we can be an addition and a support to the family structure, we're going to continue to build relationships. And let me tell you right now, kids and parents are stressed. We took about 20 minutes in our meeting yesterday as a staff to talk about what we're seeing from our kids and families, and everybody is up here.
Yeah.
I mean, they're stressed out. They're not managing it well. We saw what happened at the high school yesterday. We don't want those things to happen, but kids are at a point where they don't know how to react. They've lost coping skills. We need to make sure that, for the very least, the kids that attend the club have resources to be better than that. So that's where we're focused. We are very blessed for the present to have the funding to do this work. We're going to prove its value over the next year to 18 months. And then we're going to go to the Fond du Lac community and we're going to say, here's what we did. Here's the value. We need to support it and support it even more locally. We're very blessed. Very rarely do you get the opportunity to start a very meaningful and impactful program with 2 years of grant funding, but we have that. And we're going to use that to the fullest extent to prove to the Fond du Lac community we can be a resource in this area, and we will be. And then starting in 2023, we'll talk about what the program looks like moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's going to be important to see the successes that you are able to put in place over the next couple of years, as far as other nonprofits perhaps looking to you as that leader and maybe implementing a similar programming or programming that can enhance, because there's a lot of overlap of services amongst different agencies and so forth. And if there's a way to bring that together cohesively in serving kids, that maybe we'll be at the Boys and Girls Club, maybe we'll be over at the Y for something, might be, doing something with Big Brothers Big Sisters, or so some of those places where the collaboration, I love to hear about that. I think that's important in order to just create that cohesiveness of community. So
Yeah, Maria,
love.
if I could just jump in really
Yeah.
quickly and touch on what you just said. We see this as a community complement program. This is not something that we want to huddle around and say this is ours, this is ours.
Mhm.
You can't do this too. We want partners. We want to work with people. We want to work with SSM. We want to learn from other clubs. We want to be a complement to what's already existing. We're not here to take over what someone else is already providing. And we've
Mhm.
been very communicative with that with SSM, because we want to be complements to what they can offer in terms of licensed therapy and things like that, especially in that 6 to 8 week gap. And we want them to see us as an asset, not someone who's trying to take or do their job for them. People who are watching this, people who will see this and understand our message, we want to be a piece to the community puzzle in addressing mental health, and we want to make sure that whatever we do is meaningful and beneficial to the overall greater good.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'm sure that as some of these conversations unfold, there'll be needs for other resources. We do the Fond du Lac Says No More initiative focused in on ending child abuse, ending domestic violence and sexual assault. We all know that some of these kids will experience those situations. And as you start talking to them, some of those things will come forth as well. Um, Making it a need for you to reach out to the experts in those areas too. So I see this as just so beneficial in terms of connecting the children with so many resources in the community. So I very much commend what you're doing at the Boys and Girls Club. I'm happy to hear that the community has stepped forward to fund this program. Sometimes programs like this don't get funding because they're unique. They haven't been tested before. There's ambivalence to go that route. So it's awesome that the Fond du Lac area community has stepped forward to support the measures here that you're doing at the Boys and Girls Club. So good work. I can't wait to see how things unfold here in the next couple of years and the way things just grow from there. So thank you both for everything you're doing. We definitely appreciate it. Aaron, keep up the good work on their board as well. I know it takes both board involvement, staff involvement, volunteers, so it's everyone just coming together. So very much appreciate you all coming and talking with us today. If someone is watching this, Dan, just real quick, and they have interest in getting their kids into the club, how would they do that? Is there a number, email? What would be the contact information for that?
Sure. The easiest way is to go to our website, bgcfdl.org. Click become a member. It's a very simple process. It's online enrollment. Pay special attention to what school your child goes to, because we have specific programs for specific schools. We've got after school programs directly at Pire, Parkside, and Chegwin. If you're at another one of the elementary schools, Johnsonville Club on Second Street, connected to the Y is your place. Pay attention to where we have transportation from, all those things, but we'll do everything we can. If your child can sign up, we'll get them enrolled and take advantage of all the great things the club has to offer, which mental health is a sliver, a sliver of what we offer between 3 and 6 after school and on non-school days and in the summer. So anybody who wants to enroll, you won't regret it.
Great. All right. Well, we are out of time. I know we could talk for hours probably on this topic. I definitely appreciate you taking time to share with us what is going on at the Boys and Girls Club of Fond du Lac. This ends this edition of Project Table Talk. Stay tuned for us to come back again with another edition on October 28th, where we'll discuss another topic that relates to furthering our mission at the Fond du Lac Area Women's Fund of creating bold change for women and girls. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.